10 years ago, I fell in love with James, a guy 2 years my senior in high school. At 16, I became pregnant and, against my parents' wishes, decided to have the baby. After living happily with James for 10 years, his untimely death forced me and my children to return to my parents' house. There, my sister Linda treated us like a burden. The man Linda ended up marrying was someone unexpected. The concept of a destined love and soulmate. When you encounter such a person, can you really defy that destiny? I met my soulmate when I was 16. Now at 26, my name is Mary. I'm a single mother with a 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. I met James, my destined partner, during my sophomore year. He was a senior at the same school, and the first time we passed each other in the hallway outside the staff room, we both felt something and turned around to look at each other. It was an eternal moment. Hard to explain, but that's how it felt. That's when we fell in love. James said,
"You might think this is weird, but I think I'm going to marry you."
It didn't sound weird to me. I felt the same way. I was just an ordinary 16-year-old, not particularly beautiful, just healthy, but at that moment, I felt like the protagonist of a story. James, talented enough to have guaranteed admission to a state university, said,
"We'll have to marry while I'm still a student, but let's get married right after you graduate high school."
Right after he said this, I found out I was pregnant. This was during an important winter of his senior year. James decided to skip college and work for us and our child, despite strong opposition from his parents. His father, Robert, a high-ranking executive in a large company and quite wealthy.
"Mary is only 16. What about high school? Don't be swayed by fleeting emotions. Think about the future,"
he said. "Why not consider marriage after graduating from college? It's obvious you're going to struggle, getting married and having a baby at such a young age." His mother, Patricia, opposed too.
"It can be taken care of discreetly at a hospital I know of."
When Robert suggested, James and I defied our parents and decided to marry and have the baby. Now that I'm a mother, I can understand the feelings and words of James's parents. It might sound selfish, but if my child came to me with such a story, I'm pretty sure I'd be opposed too. But back then, for us, there was no other choice but to have and raise a child together. And even now, I don't regret that decision. Leaving a note for my parents, I quickly packed my bags and slipped out of the house, heading towards Boston. We didn't leave without a plan. James had been in touch with Richard, a mobile game app developer since middle school. We decided to rely on him.
"No way. James was in high school, and his girlfriend too, and pregnant? That's crazy."
The man we turned to was over 30.
"This is a mess. I knew you were young, but I thought you were over 20. If I'd known you were high schoolers, I would have stopped you, but I can't just abandon you now."
Richard said, troubled. He let us stay in his condo, which also served as his office, and even became our guarantor when we rented an apartment. Under the condition that we contact our parents eventually, James and I both sent postcards without our address saying, "We're doing fine, please don't look for us." James started helping Richard with game development.
"What? James was still in middle school when he came up with that idea? That's impressive. To be able to program like this self-taught?"
Richard was amazed. James had been involved in game development before. I took care of the cleaning and the cooking at the Office Coombe residence.
"This is a big help. I usually eat out fast food or instant ramen."
Richard appreciated it, and I was glad my help with my mom's cooking came in handy, though it also made me miss my parents. James and I got married and became husband and wife. There was no wedding ceremony, no rings, no honeymoon, but we celebrated with a small cake just for us. We had a daughter and sent a postcard with a family photo to both sets of grandparents. Every Christmas, we sent family photos to them. The job at Richards didn't pay much, but as he promised, we received a substantial bonus when the app hit big 2 years later. I remember being overjoyed, especially since I was pregnant with our second child, a boy. Life with our family of 4 was hectic but happy.
Maybe we're drawn to each other to meet these kids,
James would say, adoring our children. These days were irreplaceable happiness. But nearly 10 years after leaving home, James suddenly collapsed. He was 27. I was 25. Our daughter Karen was 8, and our son Thomas was 6. It was acute myeloid leukemia.
I'm sorry, Mary. I've been hiding this from you. I had a bone marrow transplant for my brother before starting high school. There was a chance of relapse, but I married you without telling you. I'm really sorry.
James apologized in the hospital bed. No, even if I had known, I would have married you, I responded. We contacted Robert and Patricia, and they, along with James's brother, came to the hospital.
Dad, Mom, I'm sorry for being a disappointment. David, sorry for wasting your donation, but I don't regret it. These nearly 10 years have been truly happy, thanks to Mary and the kids,
James said.
We could tell you were happy from the photos you sent,
Patricia said, crying and holding James's hand.
Thank you, Mary. Please take care of the kids. Karen, Thomas, I'm sorry I won't see you grow up. Thank you.
Those were James's last words. While feeling nearly crushed by sadness, I knew I had to stay strong for the children. I thought I had to be strong for James too, and take good care of the children. We held a simple funeral with Robert, Patricia, David, and some work acquaintances from Boston. Richard and Patricia offered us to live with them, but I decided, I'm going back to my parents. I've worried them for 10 years. They understood, and Patricia said, Call us if you need anything.
At least let us pay for their grandchildren's upbringing in James' place,
Robert added. I was truly grateful for their offer. I planned to work, but was anxious about whether I could raise 2 children comfortably on my income as a high school dropout. I decided to accept help until the kids finished compulsory education. During school holidays, we'd visit James' parents, and with this arrangement, I returned to my parents' home. I had informed them by phone, but after 10 years, my parents warmly welcomed me back. My mother, Barbara. I never expected to suddenly have 2 adorable grandchildren. She tearfully embraced my children. My father, William, said,
You've been through a lot. You've done well.
I couldn't stop my tears. However, my sister Linda was cold.
You have some nerve returning. After you left, we had our own troubles.
Saying this, she didn't even show a smile to the children. Linda, 3 years older, was always more beautiful and smarter than me, and often looked down on me. She was attending a prestigious private school when I left, and resented me for spreading rumors about her sister eloping at 16. Linda, now 29, has been working at a prominent local company for 7 years, and is anxiously engaged in matchmaking activities. You think you can raise 2 kids properly after dropping out? It's just troublesome having you back. She often criticizes me. She was also upset about giving up my room, which she used after I left. Therefore, the children didn't warm up to her. Karen, my strong-willed daughter, would ask Linda uncomfortable questions like, Aunt Linda, aren't you getting married? Linda disliked being called aunt, snapping at Karen.
Can you stop calling me that? Suddenly having a niece or a nephew is annoying.
To which Karen replied, But you're an aunt. What else should I call you? Leaving Linda speechless. Although I felt guilty about the kids changing schools, they adapted quickly and were cheerful about attending their new school. During the summer, they stayed with James's parents. Robert, Patricia, and David, who spoiled them a bit too much, making them very happy with various outings and gifts. When I visited James's family, they were eager to hear about our life in Boston, and I would lose track of time talking about James. James' older brother, David, was unlike James. While James was almost too slender, David was muscular, with only their eyebrows looking similar. David, lively and strong-willed, contrasted with the gentle and laid-back James. He was a great storyteller, often making me and the kids laugh. About 3 months after returning home, "You come back with 2 kids, don't work, and leech off us? But then again, what decent job could a dropout get?" Linda confronted me. Seeing the situation, my mother interjected. "Mary has been contributing to the household expenses properly. You, on the other hand, haven't given us any money since you started working. Can't you be a bit kinder to your sister, who's grieving the loss of her beloved husband?" She chastised Linda. "What, she isn't working, is she?" It might have been shocking for Linda. In fact, right after I returned to my parents' house, James' parents had transferred $5,000 to my bank account for child support, and they said they would transfer this amount every month. I said, "I can't accept so much." But they told me, "Having money is not a problem, Mary. Instead of going to work, we want you to stay with the children, for James too." Hearing them say for James too, I couldn't say anything more. At home, I contributed $1,500 for our expenses, kept $500 for ourselves, and saved the remaining $3,000 for the children's future. Only my mother knew the exact amount. "And Mary helps around the house too. She does more cooking and cleaning than I do," my mother added. "So what? I'll be married soon." Her argument didn't make much sense. I thought it'd be good for her to learn cooking if she was getting married. "Linda, if you're getting married, maybe you should learn cooking from Mom," I suggested. This seemed to hit a nerve, as she snapped. "I don't need your concern. I'm attending cooking classes, and I don't need to learn your poor-style cooking." My mother got angry. "Sorry for the poor cooking, then," she said. Despite the tension, Linda's successful matchmaking was a good thing. Soon, Linda's marriage was arranged, with a doctor 3 years her senior. In a rare good mood, she said to me, "Mary, I hate to say this, but can you not come to my wedding or reception? People here know about your elopement against our parents' wishes, and I don't want to explain why you've come back. You don't have to attend the family meeting either. Having a dropout single mother as a sister is embarrassing." This was typical of status-conscious Linda. Both my parents were furious, but Linda, set on marrying a doctor, was adamant. "I need Mom and Dad at the wedding, but once I'm married, I'll be part of his family, and I don't care what others think." She was ready to sever ties with her own family. "Mom, Dad, it's okay for me. Let's not fight," I said, trying to calm the situation. Linda scoffed, "Acting like the good girl," and stormed off to her room. "Aunt Linda is mean," my daughter Karen said audibly, leading my parents to sigh deeply. Exactly a year after my return, Linda got married. Honestly, I felt relieved. About 10 days after her wedding, Linda called. "I'm bringing over some honeymoon souvenirs." I was fine not doing it, but my husband wants to meet you. Surprised, I replied. I thought I was supposed to be non-existent. I had assumed that was the case. I accidentally mentioned it during our honeymoon. I figured it would be impossible to keep it a secret forever. It's fine now that I'm married, Linda said, seemingly no longer needing to pretend. She likely hid her true self before marriage. That day, we all waited for Linda and her husband, including my 2 children. When the doorbell rang and my mother opened the door to greet the newlyweds, I was shocked at the sight of Linda's husband. "What? David?" Linda, in a good mood, said cheekily, "How familiar are you suddenly? This is my husband, David. And these are my sister and her children. Meeting for the first time? My sister, not the brightest, only good for having kids. Ignore her. Stupidity is contagious." She joked in a way that wasn't funny at all. Ignoring Linda, David looked at me and said,
"Ah, so it is Mary."
It was David, James's brother.
"What did you just say?
David said in a low voice to Linda. Linda dismissively said, "See, she's stupid and presumptuous. Stay away from Mary before her stupidity rubs off on you."
Apologize,
David demanded in a strained voice, his fists trembling. Huh? Oh, you don't have to say that. But since he insists, Mary, apologize. Linda responded nonchalantly.
You're the one who should apologize,
David said firmly to Linda.
What?
Not understanding what was said to her, Linda asked again.
Can't you apologize? This woman is my brother's wife.
David said sternly.
What? What do you mean? Your deceased brother?
Linda was taken aback. Uncle David! Uncle David! Karen and Thomas chimed in, recognizing him from their visits to James's family home, where David had taken them out and become close to them.
Linda told me she had a sister who, embarrassingly, had a child at 16 against her parents' wishes, and then returned home after being widowed by a strange man. That strange man was my brother.
David revealed.
What? No, I didn't know.
Linda was shocked.
Why wasn't Mary at the family meeting? Why wasn't she invited to the wedding or the reception?
David pressed.
Well, it was hard to say that my sister is a dropout single mother.
Linda stammered. I couldn't help thinking how this awkward situation could have been avoided if we had met at the family meeting.
Indeed, both my brother and Linda's sister took risks, but my brother passed away, saying he had been happy for 10 years. Mary and the children made him happy. Linda, you've insulted my brother, too.
David's anger was unabated, and Linda was in tears.
I'm sorry, I didn't know,
she said.
What you said earlier about your own sister, I've lost confidence in our future together.
David continued, still angry.
No, please don't say that. I'll change, I promise.
Linda pleaded, desperate not to lose her elite doctor husband. However, David needed space.
I need some time to think. William, Barbara, Mary, I'm sorry for this mess. I'll speak to you all again soon.
And left despite Linda's tearful pleas. We were all stunned, at a loss for words for Linda. This is a tough situation, even if it's her own doing. My mother sighed. Linda continued to cry, and I couldn't help feeling a bit sorry for her. She isn't inherently evil, just not the best in character.
Mary, I was wrong. Can you help me make things right with him?
Linda asked tearfully. I couldn't refuse her request. The next day, I visited James' family home. Our sons seem to have quite a fate with you sisters, Patricia commented while serving tea. I told David not to worry about me. Linda is strong-willed, vain, and selfish, but she's not a bad person. As her sister, I want her to be happy. Please give her another chance. David then shocked us all.
I know I shouldn't say this, but I think I decided to marry Linda because she reminded me of Mary.
What? Both Robert and Patricia were surprised.
I've looked forward to seeing Mary and the kids this past year, but knowing Mary still holds James in her heart, I decided to marry and move on.
I didn't know how to respond. I don't think Linda and I are much alike, I said.
You are, and the way you smile and your voice, that's why I married her, but I was wrong. I should have waited until you were over James.
I won't forget him.
What?
I won't forget James.
But Mary, you're still young, and the kids are fond of me. I want to make you happy in James's place.
I'm sorry. The father of those children is only James, I replied. While I appreciate David as James's brother, I have no feelings beyond that.
David, you've lost this one. No matter the circumstances, proposing to the sister of the woman you just married is absurd,
Patricia said, causing David to feel even more dejected.
He's always been a bit self-centered and impatient, not considering others' feelings.
Robert's harsh comment further disheartened David. James was really kind. I never saw him angry or speak ill of anyone. But I was happy when David stood up to Linda. It's okay if she speaks badly about me, but I couldn't stand her insulting James. Thank you for that, I said. David seemed deflated.
So it's no use then?
And he said this in a disheartened voice.
Of course it's not. And if you divorced over this, Mary and her children would face even more backlash.
Patricia, who had heard from David about Linda's behavior towards me, came to my defense.
Being strong-willed and selfish. Sounds like David and Linda are quite similar. They'll make it work. Forget about Mary.
Robert added, seemingly preventing Linda's divorce.
Don't worry, Mary. I'll help Linda adjust her attitude,
Patricia said with a smile, showing a surprisingly stern side of her usually gentle demeanor.
Thank you, Mary. I'm sorry for everything, and really grateful,
Linda said before returning to David. Linda, once ready to cut ties with her family before her marriage, now frequently visits home, bringing cakes and sweets we like. Something unthinkable before.
Patricia is really strict, despite her gentle appearance.
Linda often comes to vent about her mother-in-law. It seems Patricia is indeed reshaping Linda's character.
A strict mother-in-law like her is just what you need,
my mother said, somewhat coldly, but happy that a divorce was avoided. David and Linda, both strong-willed, often have loud arguments, but seem to be managing well. Frankly, I always thought a man who demands an apology to his wife like that wouldn't work well with me, so maybe Linda and David are well suited for each other. Sometime later, Richard from Boston informed us of the completion of a new game, the last one James worked on. I downloaded it immediately. This is the game Daddy was working on last. The game featured a brother and sister named Karen and Thomas, modeled after our children. Yes, our 2 children are the models for it.
Daddy made this? That's amazing! This is us! Wow!
The kids exclaimed, looking at the game screen in awe. It was a game filled with James's love, but playing it often brought tears, making it hard to continue. When we finished the game, the screen displayed "Thank you," the same as James's last words. Thank you, too. I was happy to have met